Today, we're working with safety in the body and how we can keep coming back into regulation. And this slide really has some of the tools that we use and the importance of using the grounding and orienting tools instead of our survival strategies. Or it might even be more accurate to say when we go into a survival strategy, to be mindful of that sooner and then to come right back into using something that will help us to be more grounded, feel more safe in the space that we're in. This 5 weeks in particular, and then the last 3 weeks of August, we're going to work more with the social and relational, how we do this in the world. Today, our focus is on realizing through our experience, our direct body experience, that it's safe to feel what's here. And that we can be present and inquire into what is it that's making me go out of regulation, and then how can I come back into regulation? So there's a big answer to that question. What is it that's bringing me out of regulation? And it varies depending on the day we're having, depending on what's going on in our life. And the tools that we use to bring ourselves back into regulation are a little bit more simple. But how can we continue to be aware of what it is that we're working with? Stored trauma is the answer to why most of us are not comfortable being in our body. It creates this energy, a feeling of doom or dread. Lots of times we'll notice that we're holding our shoulders up around our ears, we clench our teeth. In particular, if it has a fear component, we might hold that in our gut, in our stomach area. So it makes it hard to go into our body, it makes it hard to do our breathing. We feel vulnerable, we feel powerless, and we feel like I'm not in control of my body because there's all this stuff that's swirling around in there all of the time. Then what happens is we go into these automatic survival strategies, these ways that we get rid of or avoid feeling that discomfort or that fear. The only way to really work with this is to know what it is that's activating these responses. What grabs us, what takes us out of our grounded, conscious, compassionate, connected place that we're in and brings us into this feeling of, I need to lash out or I need to get out of here. Connecting inside is what heals us. And it also gives us the courage to be ourselves and to connect with other people in an authentic way. Our nervous system has this unconscious process of detecting threat. And I know I say this a lot, and I'm going to continue because it's so important. It's not legitimate to shame ourselves for going into fight, flight, freeze, into people pleasing. Our nervous system has a way that it works, and it's not a very sophisticated way that it works. It's always looking for what's the danger. We scan with our eyes, we feel it in our body, we hold our breath. We have these signals that happen, and then we can bring our conscious awareness in and go, wow, look at that. I was present in my body and with my breath, and then all of a sudden, I notice that I'm tensed up and I'm holding my breath. What happened there? It can happen just when we're sitting on our own. It can happen definitely with other people. We have this hypervigilance that comes in, but it really prevents us from dealing with the kind of social threats that we deal with. It was a lot more effective in wild animals coming out from behind a bush than it is for the nuance of someone's tone of voice or the look on their face or feeling excluded. This ability to detect what's actually going on and then using our tools to come back into regulation is how we are able to work with this. Am I safe enough? Let's go into the inquiry. Bring to mind something that is either dysregulating you right now or more likely a memory of something. When we're reading those signals, the signals could be our body tightened up, we started holding our breath, we have certain thoughts come into our mind. We could have a fight, flight, or freeze response that we're noticing. So those are the signals. And let's bring something to mind that we can work with, something that's not a 10 out of 10 for this. And when you bring it to mind, we have this dual focus. We're noticing there's something here that feels a bit dangerous or threatening. Most often it's something social or relational. And do you need to take action? If you're in a social situation, for instance, and that person that always bullies other people's comes into the room and you notice that you start to tighten up, if it's bad enough, you're going to want to make an excuse and get out of there. Maybe it's not safe for you to stay. Most of the time, it will be, especially if there's several people there or if it's somebody that you feel like you're making that trade of, I need to stay with this, even though I don't like being around that particular person because I want to be around the other people that are here. Let's take a minute to let that come in. And notice if you're having an urge to go into a survival response, notice if that's happening. And notice what it is specifically. Sometimes it's that somebody is disconnected or feeling anxious, and we feel anxious when we're around them. So, somebody who has that kind of edgy, maybe they're in a fight or flight, their eyes are not focused, they're kind of scanning all the time. Those are signals that historically and evolutionarily we were paying attention to because someone else might have noticed the tiger behind the bush and we didn't notice that it would be helpful for us to. But in a social situation, what happens is we're picking up on someone else's anxiety. Notice if it's that or if that's part of it. It could be there's someone in the room now who's feeling like a bit of a personal threat, like they're a bully. Maybe they bully you, maybe they bully other people. They talk over people. They spout off with their opinions that you don't agree with. They have a power over energy. Could be that. Or it could be someone who's glowering and has that dark energy of, wow, what's going on with them? I don't feel really safe around them. As you're bringing that up and you're noticing that, notice how your body feels. Can you take a few deep breaths? And if any of this shows up as images and you're feeling a little bit too activated by this, we can always use the tools around thought. You can bring your fingers to your forehead and make circles or tap on your forehead. You could put the image into a frame, open your eyes. Opening our eyes helps us to know it's not happening right now. Put it in a frame on the other side of the room. Notice there's the image, and it might be image of words or an image like a picture. There's the frame, and then there's the empty space on the outside of the frame. Take your eyes around that a couple times in each direction. We could use any of those tools that will help us to break the trance that says this is happening right now, because it's not. We're thinking of something. Notice what has to change for you to feel safe in this situation. And quite often it's some kind of an urge to change them. Well, if they would just stop doing that, then I would feel safe. Completely common and normal for us to feel that way. Often we can't actually change them, though, of course. What could you do? What are your options that you could do to help yourself feel safer? You could leave. You could set a boundary. You could check out with others. I always feel kind of anxious when that person comes into the meeting. They're glowering or never quite sure what they're going to say. They often say things that are kind of nasty. What are your options in this situation? Including leaving. You could leave physically, you could check out and start thinking about something else. And if it feels safe enough for you to stay, take note of that in your body. Often, in a situation where there's multiple people, there's someone else that you could talk to. You could take your attention a little bit away from that person. And then instead, we'll come back into regulating our own nervous system. We're recognizing there's a threat. We're not pretending that there's not. We're noticing that we're activated into some kind of a anxiety or survival response. You could do some long extended exhales. Let your breath regulate you. You could notice that in this moment, what you're doing is bringing up a memory of something that feels threatening. You're not actually in the situation right now, although you might be soon again. This is something we can practice now and then take this into the next time we're in that situation. Notice what else there is to notice in the environment that you're in. There's that person or people, maybe. There's the look on their face, their voice, whatever that might be. And then what else could you focus on? Let the threat or the threatening person move into the background. We can really count on our nervous system to alert us if something changes. We can either focus really strongly on what we're vigilant about, or we can trust that we're going to know what to do, and then we can focus on the other stuff. Who else is in the room? Could you focus on somebody there that you enjoy being with? Maybe somebody else who feels anxious too. And really focus in on the self regulating that you can do in your own body. What are the cues of safety? One might be to take a deeper breath. Notice if that feels okay. You could do some cyclic sighing or the 4-7-8 breath pattern. There's all of those interrupters. So if we're starting to feel kind of activated, we could do that. You could hold your own hands, feel the warmth and strength of your own hands. And really notice what kind of thoughts are in your mind. It's very common to get really hooked into something that's going on if it feels threatening or dangerous. Sometimes we get that righteous indignation. How dare they? They're ruining it for everybody. I'm never going to be free of this. We might get into catastrophic thinking as well. We use the tools to stay regulated and be grounded. And then we could look around and see what there is to enjoy. Maybe there's a few people here who you haven't seen for a while, and you could say, hey, let's go outside for a few minutes and catch up with each other. What is there to enjoy in the situation? Let yourself really notice how that feels in your body as you visualize that. Notice that we're not pretending that everything's okay. We're allowing that in. There is a threat. Something here is making me feel anxious. I can tell by the signals in my body. And I'm also giving my body the signals that, right now it's not ideal, but it is okay enough. It's safe enough. I don't have to leave right now. So that's part of the answer. What has to change for me to feel safer is I could focus on things that I could enjoy or that make me feel safer and take my attention away from focusing on the person or the people who don't feel safe enough. Let's give this another couple of minutes, really breathing that in. It's safe enough for me to be here. I have a pretty accurate perception of the situation. I'm not trying to talk myself out of it. I'm not gaslighting myself. I'm accurate. I'm realistic. And I'm really working with those cues of safe enough, of people that I can enjoy. Maybe there's a beautiful view out the window that you could focus on for a moment, or the look of kindness in someone else's eyes. Let yourself absorb that, the cues of safety. Even in a difficult situation, we can often find things to enjoy.